Hello and welcome to the EWC Writing Center online Plagiarism and Turnitin presentation. Now, these are recorded as live sessions, but if students don't show up, I just record them and then you can watch them later. I'm always available to answer questions. Just email the Writing Center at writingcenter@ewc.edu. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is look at Turnitin because I do find that students are much more interested usually in how Turnitin works and how they read their reports and that kind of thing. So I'm just going to take us to that particular screen. Let's see. Okay, so on this screen here, you should see a Turnitin assignment, example Turnitin assignment. Some Turnitin assignments have multiple parts. I put multiple parts in here just so I would have an opportunity to upload various documents. And you can see there's my name right there. We're pretending I'm a student. Here's my submission. If I click this link, it's going to download the original file that I uploaded. Your Turnitin paper ID is the unique number that Turnitin assigns your paper so that it can reference that paper. This is your submission time and date. This is the similarity score. So this is saying that my paper is 99% similar to something else found online. This is the grade the instructor has assigned me, 72 out of 100. Now, I would assume these grades don't really go together. I was using this to show some people how to grade in Turnitin. So over here, you can download the submission. You can refresh submissions. You can delete submissions. Now, when you first come in, do you see Dr. Campbell's name is up here, and Dr. Campbell has not submitted anything yet. And so she has a place she can submit something, and that's what this is, this little cloud, submit paper. And you would click this, and then it would ask you to upload a file. Okay, but let's imagine I've uploaded the file, I'm totally done, and I've got this similarity. Oh my goodness, let's take a look at it. Now, all I would do in here, hopefully you noticed, I just clicked on this color, the red, and it opened up my essay. Now, there's a lot going on here, right? On the right-hand side, you can see the similarity. If you open this, it's going to show you where it got it from. But you don't actually have to go anywhere to find out exactly where it got it from. If you want, you can download the whole thing. So download current view. You can see it's preparing, so just give it a moment. Okay, and there's my file. So I'm going to open this, and this is my paper. Here's all my submission information, my word count, everything. Here's the actual essay. And this is where it's submitted to. Now, since this is 99% plagiarized, this is not super helpful for us to learn what one of these looks like. So I've pulled up a different one. This is an example Turnitin report. And it shows you what this should look like. Why didn't this load all the way? Sorry, let me reload this. Okay, sorry for that delay there. I had to go back and make sure this downloaded. So this is a good example Turnitin report. It shows you an example highlight. This is blue, right? This is purple, green. So each thing highlighted here is something that has been found in a different area. This is your reference list. As you can see, reference lists are often highlighted because, of course, we're copying and pasting them directly from different places on the internet. So here is your actual report, part of the report, right? And it gives you, as you can see, a color-coded red, pink, purple, blue, green, and you should remember those colors from up here, right? It color codes them so you can say, oh, the purple one is this source. Now, I will say 15%, this number indicates that this is likely not plagiarized, especially since when we go back and look, most of these are in quotation marks. right? And an instructor, hopefully if they see this in quotation marks, will see that it is a direct quote. You're not pretending that it's your own thing. So this is a good example of a time when you get a percentage in Turnitin, but that percentage does not indicate that it is plagiarism. Now, there's no magic number to for instructors to see and say, oh, this definitely isn't plagiarism. What instructors have to do when they get one of these is go through it and actually pay attention to each detail of what's happening, right? Are there quotation marks? Is there a source cited somewhere nearby? How much of this paper is quote unquote plagiarized? So that the instructor should be spending some time to evaluate this report. It shouldn't be just, oh, it's 15% and therefore it is plagiarized. So hopefully that helps you understand what Turnitin is better and what it looks like when you get a report and how to read your report. Okay. Okay, going back to our slideshow here. For those of you that were just here for Turnitin, that is the end of our Turnitin portion of this. I'm going to move next into plagiarism, how we avoid it, how we deal with it, and what EWC's policies on it are. So first, EWC's policy, this comes from your student handbook, right? This lets us know academic dishonesty and plagiarizing are not acceptable practices in college, at any college, and they're certainly not acceptable at EWC. You'd be referred to the counseling center, have a conference with the instructor, receive a grade of F for the assignment, possibly for the course. You could be administratively withdrawn from the course, so on and so forth, right? Every college has a list of possible outcomes of this. What would likely happen in a first offense is that your instructor would probably contact you and meet with you and try to correct the problem. Always consult your instructor's syllabus too to see what that particular instructor has to say about academic dishonesty. Okay, next. Students often ask me, do I have to cite everything? And the answer is no, you don't have to cite everything. There's what's called a common knowledge exception to citation. Things that you don't have to cite are widely known facts, ideas or interpretations that are also widely held, verbatim and language of widely held formation. And you'll notice the common concept here is widely. So do a lot of people know about it? Would most people recognize this as something that you didn't come up with on your own? Example. You can include facts in your writing without fear of plagiarism. If it's something like the molecular structure of water, right? Most people know H2O is water, or that Andrew Jackson was the 7th president of the United States. You shouldn't have to cite this information because, again, most people should know this. And if you'd like, you can pause here and read this, this more specific example. I like to include in this particular presentation a number of slides where you can pause and just read more about this. Next is ideas or interpretations that are widely held. So this is basically that this concept is something that a lot of people agree on and understand. So for example here, if you read R.A.C. Parker's history of World War II, he says that the British minister Neville Chamberlain did not have to agree to the 1938 Munich Pact with Hitler, and that he could have chosen an alternate path. You would need to acknowledge the source here, but the theory itself is widely held. So if you start talking, if you start quoting directly from the source, you would certainly want to acknowledge the source. But this widely held theory that that Neville Chamberlain did not have to make this pact with Hitler is not something that you would have to cite. Okay, ideas or interpretations that are widely held, continued. One type of idea or interpretation that may be widely held could be a quote, actually. So for example, if someone says, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country, hopefully many people would recognize that as President Kennedy's speech. There are, of course, like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech is another example that you wouldn't have to cite. If you say, I have a dream, most people should know that he said that. So those types of quotes, incredibly famous quotes that most people would recognize, you would not have to cite. So again, these are our 3 ideas. widely known facts and ideas or interpretations that are widely held, and verbatim language widely held. So stuff everyone should know is the short answer. So now we're going to talk about different types of plagiarism. As you can see, there are quite a few types. We're going to roll through them individually. First is direct plagiarism or verbatim. This is the most common one that people are aware of. Most people know that if you copy and paste something into your paper and you don't cite it, that it's plagiarism. Here's an example of direct plagiarism. You can see here this highlighted bit at the bottom. Gender bias occurs when people make assumptions regarding behaviors, abilities, or preferences of others based on their gender. And here's the source. As you can see down in the second paragraph, gender bias occurs when people make assumptions regarding behaviors, right? That sounds familiar. That's because that language is a verbatim or word for word, the same as this. This is usually pretty obvious when it happens in student papers, and it's pretty easy to find. There's a larger version of it if you'd like to pause and be able to read this a little more easily. Next is self-plagiarism. Students really hate this one, but you can't just reuse your work from previous assignments without permission. You have to talk to both instructors. So the instructor you originally turned the assignment into, and now your current instructor as well. There are several reasons for this. The most important reason to me is that there is a reason this assignment is being given to you. The instructor wants you to practice writing. They want you to practice research. They don't want you to just hand in something you've already handed in. There is no value in that for you educationally. Additionally, when you turn in an essay, you are technically publishing. If you don't cite when you publish something, like you've published something and then you just publish it somewhere else, that's considered academic dishonesty. Academics don't do that. So if you've quote unquote published by handing this in to another instructor, you will need to cite it in your next paper. Next is mosaic plagiarism. This is like the idea of a mosaic picture where maybe we've smashed up some pottery or something, we've made a new picture out of it. So this is where students copy bits and pieces from various sources and then place them all together. Here's an example of mosaic plagiarism. In December, some of the cotton retail giant Victoria's Secret used as harvested by young children in West African nation of Burkina Faso. And you can see in December that some of the cotton retail giant, right? Here's an exact quote. So that was just the first source that's in this paper. Same essay, new source. This century has seen democratization in the form of big retailers selling cheap and trendy clothes. Source 2. So this is a different source. This century has seen democratization, right? So this student has pulled from various sources to create their essay and not cited. Okay, next is accidental plagiarism. Students ask me about this one a lot. Can't I accidentally plagiarize? The answer is yes, but it's not in the way that most people think. This is when a student really does forget to attribute or does not cite properly. This happens because of a couple different reasons. Maybe the student doesn't adequately differentiate between their own thoughts and the source material. Let's say you've been reading and reading and reading and you've learned all these things and you forgot where you learned fact A and you just put it in because you think, well, I just know this now. So if you've done that, you have plagiarized. You need to go back and figure out where you got that from. How about for the second reason here, the student does not adequately indicate source material during paraphrasing. So let's say you've taken what someone else has said, you've reworded it, and you haven't really indicated that that is a paraphrase of someone else's sentence. You cut and paste, but you forget to cite later when coming in back for your work. This is an easy fix. Every time you copy and paste a quote, put quotation marks around it, and just put the author's name next to it. You can always come back and make sure to fix your APA later, but this way you don't forget that that's a quote and where it came from. Okay, inadequate paraphrase. Inadequate paraphrase is plagiarism. It's not enough to change a few words. You have to actually restate the ideas in your own words. My advice for this would be to put away the source material while you write or paraphrase. So put it into your own words. Pretend you're talking to someone else about this and you don't have the paper in front of you. Once you've done this, you need to go back and look at the original, compare it to your current sentence, and make sure that they are different enough. And you still need to cite. You must cite every single paraphrase. Here's an example of inadequate paraphrase. My example right here, I would suggest that you pause this and read through this whole paragraph, because I'm not going to read it to you because everyone would be asleep by the end of this. Here is another example of a bad paraphrase. Okay, corrected. This is it corrected. And sorry for the background noise here, as most of you are at home with your families. I am at home with my family as well. So occasionally in these videos, you probably are going to hear one of my several children, or my husband, or my dog. So hopefully that wasn't too distracting for you. So looking back here at the original, this is George Orwell, right? It's from collected essays of George Orwell. Modern English, especially written English, is full of bad habits which spread by imitation, which can be avoided if one is willing to take the necessary trouble. If one gets rid of these habits, one can think more clearly. Right? A number of bad habits, if you take the trouble, the necessary first step, you can see, hopefully, the similarities here. Now, the easiest way to fix this actually is just take those parts that we had pulled directly from the text and just drop quotation marks around them. Here's another example. This word habits. Pay attention to the word habits, right? The plagiarized version where the student comes through and just changes words. This is what it would look like if we actually made a good paraphrase. So just remember, it's not enough to paraphrase the source material responsibly. You also need to cite the source. Whenever you use ideas that you did not think up yourself, you need to give credit to the source where you found them, whether you quote directly from that material or provide a responsible paraphrase. So if you're going to reword responsibly, always cite. This is a paraphrase that is uncited. You can pause again and read this. This is what it looks like when you've taken from the source on the previous slide and not cited. This would be an acceptable version now, according to Graves and Peterson. And you go back to the original source. This is Graves and Peterson. And then I offer my paraphrase below it. An uncited quotation. It's not enough to indicate the material in quotation marks is not the product of your own thinking. You must also credit the author, provide a trail for your reader to follow. So here's the source version. Again, you probably want to pause this and read through. This is what the plagiarized version would look like. You see quotation marks around it, but we still don't have a source. And then here's the acceptable version. So you can see we have a citation right here. Using other students' work. Now, hopefully you guys already know this, but you may not just use another student's paper or a portion of any other student's paper. You must write your own work. Additionally, ideas that come up in class discussion or peer review are collaborative and not just the product of one individual's thinking. If you're in discussion and someone gives you an idea, you should cite that person. So a lot of students ask me this question: couldn't I happen to come up with the same wording as someone else? And the answer is nope. I hate to burst that bubble. Those of you that were hoping that maybe accidental plagiarism, in the sense that most people understand it, is true, it's not. The English language is far too varied for that to be possible. In creating an original sentence, let's look at this math here, and assuming the writer is free to choose any of the 20,000 words in their vocabulary, because the average American has a vocabulary of about 20,000 words, and use these words in any order, a series of 5 words that exactly match another source would have a random chance probability of essentially 1 in 3.2 sextillion. So to give that a little bit of context, And we're making sure that we are ignoring common syntax words like articles, a, and, the, right? The accidental match that excludes very common words and common phrases means that you are, this accidental match here that we're talking about at 5 words or more is less likely than hitting the Powerball jackpot twice in a row. Powerball uses 55 numbered balls, of which 5 are picked, and then separate red Powerball is randomly picked. Correctly selecting the 5 lottery balls and 1 Powerball is a one chance in, right, 146 million. The odds of hitting the jackpot twice in a row, right, as you can see. So these numbers are pretty impressive, right? Leaves you with a remainder of 149,000. According to the National Hole-in-One Association, the odds of hitting hole-in-one, even if you're an amateur, is 1 in 33,000. So you could hit the lottery jackpot twice in a row and still have the odds left over to hit a hole-in-one while golfing. And that is still less likely than accidentally, or still more likely than accidentally matching the same 5 words as another source. So in other words, no. So what if I have a smaller vocabulary? You're saying, right, 20,000 sounds huge. What if my vocabulary isn't that big? Well, first of all, your vocabulary probably is that big. But even if it wasn't, let's say for some reason your vocabulary was only 1,000 words. Even out of 1,000 word vocabulary, you would still have a 1 in quadrillion chance of accidentally coming up with the same 5 words as another person. How about if you only had 50 words? What if you only understood as many words as a dog, right? Your pet pooch at home still has a 1 in 312 million chance of coming up with the same exact 5 words in a row as someone else. And I did not come up with these numbers, by the way. This was MIT that came up with these the numbers for these words. Now, if you would like to know what your vocab size is, you can actually test it. This testyourvocab.com is pretty informative. They say most adult native test takers, and by native here, they mean native speakers. So these are people that grew up speaking English. If you grew up speaking English, you should have between 20 and 35,000 words as an adult. 8-year-olds know about 10,000, 4-year-olds about 5,000. So I will say that I have had students come through, take this test, and score under 20,000, and they were very upset and disappointed. Don't feel bad about that. Everyone's vocabulary is different. If your vocabulary is small compared to the average, I have some really simple advice for you. Read. Pick up a challenging book, read it. When you find a word you don't understand, look it up, and look up every single word you don't understand. Learning vocabulary works best in context meaning within a framework. And when we're reading a book, we see clues around those words that help us understand what that new word means. And if we learn the definition of it as well, we get like a really rich sense of what the word means. So pick up a difficult book. If you want something difficult that you can get online for free, I would say Herman Melville's Moby Dick is an excellent text for this because he uses really difficult words. On the very first page of that text, you're going to find the word circumambulate. And you can Google that if you would like and learn it. I remember the day I learned that word, though, because it was so large and strange. So my advice for you would be, if you're having vocabulary issues, read, read, read. There's plenty of stuff available for free. You can pull up that book on your phone and thumb through it at your leisure. Okay. Now, that's the end of our presentation for today. If you do have questions about plagiarism, Turnitin, or anything else when it comes to writing, I can help with Moodle and all kinds of stuff. Just email writingcenter@ewc.edu.